guys, I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission, I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain, keep on working. Curtains haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road, let's camera action, I'm ready to go.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio. Today's guest host is Jesse Turner.
Thank you. Salutations, New Haven and Connecticut. We have a really special show today with incredible guests talking about a topic that is often, that during this pandemic has been maybe not on the forefront. We want to talk today about reaching all our learners in virtual schooling, face-to-face schooling, and we have some really insightful people. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that today's conversation was inspired by Glenn Taylor Edwards of News 12. And Gwen had sent out a public notice asking people we were struggling to reach learners virtually in Norwalk and Bridgeport. And she was very worried. She wanted ways to maybe motivate and keep students engaged. And really, this is a conversation that Gwen brought to me. I wasn't paying attention, I have to be honest there. And it's an essential conversation. I'm going to begin by asking each of our guests to introduce themselves. I'll start with Gwen, and then I'll move to Gladys, then I'll move to Shelley, then I'll move to Alicia, I'll move to Robert Cotto, and I'll move to Wanda Simmons, and all of you have been really, I chased you down because you have insights that are needed. So I'd like to begin with introducing the fabulous and the beautiful Gwen Taylor Edwards. Gwen, are you active on the mic? I think we've got you muted. I'm going to see if I can unmute you. All right, try.
Good morning.
Good morning. So wonderful to see your face.
So wonderful to see you. Happy New Year. Thank you to everyone who stepped up and answered the challenge. My name is Gwen Edwards. I am a television producer and talk show host with News 12 Connecticut. And this issue was brought to me after meeting with several groups. One was a Minister Alliance group in Bridgeport, and one was a mentoring group in Stamford. They had been reaching out to parents and to students, trying to find out how they could assist them in their online learning. And many parents expressed frustration that some students were not even opening up the laptop.
Oh, that's yes, and we heard you on that. And so now we'll move to Dr. Shelley Jones, and I'll give you some little insight on why we've invited people. Dr. Shelley Jones is a professor of mathematics, an incredible, insightful scholar who talks about culturally relevant pedagogy, and her voice is much needed today. Welcome, Shelley. Have to unmute yourself.
Thank you for having me this morning. Good morning and Happy New Year. So, Jesse and Gwen and Tom as well all know that I advocate for culturally relevant pedagogy. I'm a professor at Central Connecticut State University. And culturally relevant pedagogy is an approach to teaching that honors what students bring to the classroom. And we're not doing enough of that. It's a pedagogy that empowers students to become doers and producers of math. We want to teach students how to think like mathematicians, not just memorize and regurgitate. That's why we're losing some of our kids, especially in the math classroom. They're not going to tune in if they're going to be bored and they don't think it relates to them. We got to make it relate to them, and we have to help them think like mathematicians do. When you talk to a mathematician, they love what they do, right? Because it's interesting. It's sometimes it's even fun. It doesn't mean it can't be challenging. Something can be challenging and our kids will step up to the plate if it relates to them. So that's why I'm here today.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, and that's true of whether we're in-person learning or virtual learning. I'd like to move to Dr. Gladys Labas today. She's the Director of Equity and Language from the Connecticut State Department of Education, and we just need to hear her voice and her insights on this. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you for the invitation. Bienvenido. Thank you. I, as you stated, I'm the Director of Equity and Language. This is a new position at the State Department. Obviously, I have over 30 years experience in district. I was a bilingual teacher, special ed teacher, middle school assistant principal, high school principal. I was the first Latina woman to run a high school in Connecticut. And that was great and not easy in those days. And I was also part of the writing of the bilingual law, the first bilingual law. We were the third state in the country to have a bilingual law. And even under the 80s, under the only English movement, we still remain with the bilingual law, while other states did away with it. And now it's coming back. So I want to say that equity is dear to me. That's something that I live. And as a parent, as an educator, right now, what we're doing is we are one of the first states to have an African-American, Black, Puerto Rican, Latino curriculum in the country that we wrote, that I oversee that. And so it is important that we get the true history. Students need to see themselves in the curriculum. And that's very important. And I know as a high school principal, I used to do that with my teachers. I'm saying we need to provide students with books, not just of your typical literature, but we did it like one of the books that the students loved to read was Esmeralda Santiago's book, When I Was Puerto Rican, and all kids read it. And then our Latino students would say, oh my goodness, those students are reading about me. That's incredible. And that really was and we continue to do that in different cultures. And so I want to continue that focus. And of course, we have done many workshops at the state on involving parents, but we'll go into some of those, reference of workshops that we have had with parents.
Thank you. Thank you, Gladys. And consider me a friend. And if you ever need my help in anything, just ask. This is an effort that's dear to us. Of course, I would like it to be a course requirement as an elected, but I realize we have to take steps first. I realize that. So this is the first step. We've got the elective, and Dr. Shelley Jones and I and Robert will be like saying, yeah, let's make it a requirement now. Yeah. Certainly. Thank you. And so I want to bring us, so the next person that I'll introduce is Dr. Alicia Stewart. Dr. Alicia Stewart, I invited because she's from Department of Special Education and Interventions. And one of the things that I've heard, I work directly with about 50 teachers a semester, about 50 children in the course of every semester. And a lot of them are students that have identified IEPs in our Literacy Center program. And one of the things I always hear is the struggles during the virtual learning. But it's not only virtual learning, it's all setting. So Dr. Alicia Stewart, could you introduce yourself? You'll just have to unmute yourself just to.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me. I, as Dr. Turner mentioned, I work in the Department of Special Education and Interventions, and my work and my career as a teacher before research was really focused on sort of how to best work with students who learn differently, and sort of advocating for them and making sure that we have a sort of this science-based way of working with students so that they're learning and we're empowering them and giving them a future that they deserve, and helping them reach their full potential with everything that they are capable of doing. And so something that is really interesting to me, now that has been my primary focus for so long, but I think in addition to that, the intersectionality of everything with special education and also with everything that we discuss with racial inequity in education and opportunity gaps. And so that's something that I really would like to be more of a part of in terms of having conversations and seeing how we can really impact our special educators to be on the forefront of that.
Well, thank you. And next we'll go to Robert Cotto. Robert Cotto is a doctoral student, an incredible policy expert who has been writing about inequity in Connecticut and talking about inequity for over a decade now. And he works at Trinity College, and Robert is also a proud parent of one cool son that attends our Hartford Public Schools. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, everybody. It's great to be here and great to talk to everybody. I'll try to be as fast as possible. I'm Robert Cotto. Like I said, I live in Hartford, lecturer at Trinity College, and I'm also completing my doctorate at UConn. And one thing, just in particular, get into it, is I conducted a survey, community engaged survey in August of last year, asking people why they went back to, why they chose in-person or online school, particularly parents in the Hartford area. And so that's kind of what brings me to the table today a little bit. And in that piece, most parents picked not in person, online in the Hartford area. And some of the big factors, and I've talked about this on WNPR at this point, the big factors for people picking in person were full-time work. So it wasn't just about my student learning, that was part of it, but the other factors, but full-time work. And then for folks that picked not in person, they said safety, the safety of my child. And so I just wanted to put it out there. I'm not judging either group. Parents have different priorities and different needs. In particular, it wasn't statistically significant, but people of color tended to pick not in person. And that's been kind of corroborated by other data from the state of Connecticut. And so I just wanted to put that out there as far as like what the universe is for like a Hartford or maybe even other cities that have a lot of people of color, Blacks, Latinos, and Asians as well in their place. And so that's what brings me here. And I've been thinking about the data and why people chose, but also like thinking about, okay, like let's say this temporary, right? How do we approach people and help parents, help students? So that I'm glad to be part of this conversation. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Robert. Excited. And now we'll move to Wanda Simmons. Wanda Simmons is an educational activist from Bridgeport, a mother whose daughter graduated from the Bridgeport High School and attended Bridgeport schools, and who is now the proud grandmother of a beautiful child as well. So Wanda, can you unmute yourself and talk to us a little bit?
Hi, yes, thank you for having me. Good morning, Happy New Year to everyone. I'm honored for the invitation, and I appreciate that you value my aspect of bringing, my voice and my advocacy to this conversation. I just want to make a corrections of some of the things you said. I have two granddaughters. I have two lovely granddaughters. So if you hear them in the background, please forgive me. I told them to go in their room and be quiet, so hopefully they will comply. But I'm excited about this conversation as being a strong education advocate in the largest district in the state of Connecticut, which is Bridgeport. And when we talk about equity and we talk about educational disparities, and just to piggyback on what Mr. Cotto just said, as far as the data, as far as our African Americans, we don't have the same resources and opportunities. I do believe that maybe one of the reasons why our families are choosing in person, because we have to go to work. We don't have the luxury of staying home and working from home and all the other things that are maybe provided, in other avenues. But I'm here to listen. I think this is just a wonderful opportunity to listen in. I also, anytime it comes to education, my ears are always open to hear how I can better service, my district. We have a lot of issues in Bridgeport, and my role is just to find solutions. I hear a lot of the complaints and the things that are going on. So my approach is to listening to all the voices that are being voicing their opinions and sitting on different avenues in different forums, and then take that information and filter it and come up with the solution. So that's my approach. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, thank you. So we have an incredible group of people in the show. Now, I want us to think about when we talk about the issue, whenever we can give a little hope, give a little maybe a solution, and that's helpful. So I'm cognizant of when I'm doing shows like this. I've been doing a series of shows for Tom Ficklin that really deal with education issues, and usually once a month or every other month, Tom will allow me a show on education issues. And so I do need to say thank you to Tom and New Haven Public Radio 103.5 FM. They're incredible. Nobody else would do this, to give someone an hour. So I'm going to move to Gwen again, and I'm going to move to you, Gwen, to tell us a little bit about those students that I think you were originally asking some of us to make motivational videos to tell students to stay engaged in school, and that seems like something that's needed. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. The working group that I was a part of with the Bridgeport Ministers Alliance, that was one of the suggestions that came out. Maybe we can do pep talks, or have peers of the students do pep talks to encourage them to continue with their education, even though it is long distance. So that was one of the things I originally had asked. But I also have a question that has come up as I continue to talk to other groups of educators and concerned parents and community leaders and religious leaders. And that is, does virtual learning stunt educational growth? Because students are not getting that social interaction, does that stunt their educational growth?
Sure. So if we were to move on, I'll throw the tough one out. I'll move to Alicia Stewart, Dr. Stewart, then I'll move to Shelley, and then I'll go to Gladys. So we've got some experts on this. And personally, I would always say that in-person learning it's the environment that as researchers like Vygotsky and Maslow talk about, that being the best learning environment. We know that context. We are educating our students during a pandemic right now. And so I do understand that as well. But Dr. Stewart, Gwen is asking us, can we, is in person, more powerful?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question. I do think that in person, of course, has such incredible benefits that are difficult to really engage in virtually. Building that strong rapport with your students so that they feel safe to take risks in an academic setting is so essential. And so it's harder to do that online, especially if it's a new group of students that you don't know yet. And they're still learning you and what you sort of reward and what you don't reward and all those kinds of things. And that can be challenging. I think because we're in a scary place where we know that students are falling behind, we feel that we need to cover so much more content. But really, I think something that we should try is really taking a little more time to actually build the rapport with our students first. Because if we have that strong foundation, we have more likelihood that they will potentially engage and try and be sort of willing to try if they're not comfortable in the beginning, or if they never get comfortable, they might not try. So some things that we do in the special ed classroom, I know online that teachers are trying to do to sort of engage in that and build a rapport, but also opportunities for students to interact with one another are all the things that I think a lot of teachers are doing, right? Like breakout rooms and things like that, embedding polls, just really short little polls into their lessons so that they can have a student respond, engaging in that comment section for responses. I've even heard of teachers, some of the teachers I work with, sending packets to every student's home with response cards so that they can hold them up, you know, with that's only if their screen's on though. And that being said, I think it's also important to not require, is just my opinion, to not require screens on. And I know that's a controversial issue, but I think it's something we have to think about. If people are comfortable letting their whole class see their home environment, do they feel okay with that? Is it a safe place for them to share with their peers? Maybe, maybe not. So it's just something to think about, but having various ways in which students can respond without just the visual, I think is essential to get their engagement.
Oh, perfect. So just before I move to Shelley, I think, Gwen, there's a little dirty secret that Connecticut doesn't want us to know. Maybe I'm not putting us on the spot, but I do work with teachers from many districts. And I have some districts where the virtual classroom is 45 and above. And I have other districts where the virtual classroom is 8 to 9. So, so I'm not, and the same issues would be in person learning as well. Mm-hmm. We know our most affluent districts have the smallest class sizes, have the greater ratio of adults to children in the room as well. So, and I'm sure we'll get to that when we talk to Dr. Labas, and Robert will feed us in that. But Shelley, can you talk to us a little bit about this? Is math face-to-face or online? Which is more, I don't know, beneficial?
Yeah. So, okay, I think that we have learned strategies to do math better even online. When we are face-to-face, we have that proximity to our students and we have that social aspect. And we all crave that. Teachers and students crave that, to have that again. But now that we are online, there are some ways that you can establish rapport with your students. You can start your class off by simply asking, what gives you joy, right? We need to know about the hopes and dreams of our students, even in math class. Some people think math, you just have to go straight to the math. But no, we need students to see themselves as mathematicians. They have to learn about the contributions of Latinx people, of African-American people, of Asian people, wherever they come from. They need to learn that we've all contributed to this math and that we can produce knowledge. A lot of times we just think that we have to do something that someone already did. And so by getting students more engaged in even finding out about what their hopes and dreams are, what they would like to do in math. You know, one teacher asked the students, what are some things that concern you? And you know what the students said? They were middle schoolers. They said, well, why is our school more crowded than the school downstairs? They shared a building and they recognized that their school was overcrowded. And so what they did was they measured their classrooms downstairs in the other one school and then upstairs in their school, and then the number of students. They were able to figure out how many students per square foot. And then that helped. It's sort of like a social justice lesson. So there are so many social justice issues that we could be tapping into for math. So there's really no excuse to get to know our students. One teacher asked her students, how do you like your rice? Silly question. But you know, all the different ways that rice is made. And a lot of times that brings in culture and students get excited. And so we have to start our classrooms off by just tapping into what students already know and do, helping them to see where the math is in themselves and where the math is in their community, and also showing them how they could use math to make an impact on some of these social issues that are going on. I mean, even though it's difficult, there's so many things that we can do with students now that we wouldn't have done in the classroom. So we have to take advantage of that. And we have to look at these issues. On Twitter, Marian Dingle, a teacher in Georgia, she tweeted, and she was picked up by Good Morning America. And she says, this was on Thursday, the Thursday after the Wednesday. And she says, so what are we doing in class today, teachers? And basically it's like, if we just had that happen at the Capitol, and if you guys are getting on that computer and just opening up your book, there's something wrong. And so there's a lot of opportunity where maybe we didn't have before. We have that opportunity now. Even I agree, even if the cameras aren't on, guess what? When she asked about the rice, cameras go on. So we have to tap into what will get students to turn those cameras on. And if they don't, that's still okay as well. A lot of times they'll type it into, and we say, type it into the chat if you don't want to put your camera on, or if you don't want to unmute, type it into the chat. And you know, we kind of get at, we tug at them, and once we get them to believe that we believe in them, they open up. Like even the girls who teachers think have attitudes. Oh, she have an attitude. Well, maybe she have an attitude because she don't like what you're teaching, or it's boring, or, you know, there's all kinds of reasons why she might have an attitude. And maybe it's really not an attitude, it's just her. So there you go.
No, perfect. Dr. Labas, if you can give us some insight into that, because our State Department has, I think it's about 160 districts in the state, maybe one or two more, I forget the exact number, working on this issue right now, dealing with in-person learning and virtual learning. You know, and really, I'm really interested in this wonderful insight you can bring to us on bilingual education, because one of the things I remember as my years as a teacher and an administrator was that my bilingual education students were part of a very close-knit community in schools. And when some people attempted to break that up, those communities that built that positive, safe zone where kids felt valuable there. But I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. You're on.
No, thank you. Thank you for that insight. I truly appreciate that. Again, focusing on our English language learners, there are two things that I've heard, well, a few things that I heard from parents when I go to faith-based organizations throughout the state, and I hear another group called Madres Latinas that also provide me feedback. And what they're saying is, my child is at home. I don't speak English. I don't know how to teach geometry. I don't know how to do this. I can't help them in this. And what we're trying to make sure they understand is, especially when they say to me, I don't speak English, I says, speak the language you are comfortable with. Language is language. That's what the research in the last 40 years has said. If I learn an adjective, I know what adjective, regardless of what the language is, I'll get it in English. And I said, just speak to them. Be part of the conversation. You're not there to be a teacher. You're there to support them. And another thing with math, I says, well, you may not know geometry, but it's okay. Hey, when you're baking, when you're doing pasteles, as an example, or you're doing something cultural, I mean, you're measuring, that's math. Don't think you're not doing math. So I try to make it much more easier for them to comprehend the process, that at home they are teaching, and at home it is important, their language, their culture, to be continued. And they feel very good about that. And so, and then we provide them at the state with different webinars in Spanish, and we also have them in different languages on how to work with their child at home. And I know I work through SERC, the State Educational Resource Center. They're excellent. And they have worked with us in providing these webinars constantly. We have one a month in Spanish on how to help parents at home with academics. But I think something as equal as important is with the school, and these are trying times. There's no, we all know that. Is the personalization. I think Jesse, you kind of hit on that. Personalization. In other words, we're working with districts, and on if a student is not attending, is not engaged, let's begin to not just make a call, but let's see if we could go out to the community. Let's get other agencies involved that would help us contact the parents. What is the issue? Is it health? Is it a food issue? Is it what's going on that the child is not engaging? Because it's not just, we're not isolated in little silos. Our students have other issues in the community, and we need to understand that and help them with that. And so that is why also we're involved with the ESF. It's a 15 agency statewide organization. And I give them reports on issues that many of our communities are having. And they also go out into the community and assist. And I think what I have learned, if I have to say one good thing of this pandemic, is that it has taught us to work together and not in silos. And that's one thing I have learned from this whole issue. And it's that it's going to continue. That's one good thing that's going to continue, that education along with community agency and faith organizations will be working together to assist our students. But it is difficult, especially when you don't speak English, and there's simple strategies I just mentioned that we give parents. And also I know of a district that makes it a point to have their teachers make contact, that personalization constantly with parents, making sure that it's not just education, but is everything okay? How can we help you? That's important.
Perfect. Robert, you've done some of the research and you've been definitely involved in the CJF case, the equity issues. You've written about these and talked about the issue of inequity in Connecticut for a number of years. So I'm thinking you could give us a little insight in how genuine equity might not only improve virtual learning, but face-to-face learning in our state.
Okay, so real quick, so my survey asked people, of course, why they wanted to come to in-person or not. And part of what I found was, and this is forthcoming, obviously, but what parents said for the in-person decision was that spring online was very difficult for them. However, there were parents that did still continue to pick online when they were, even though they struggled online in the spring, they were like, I want my child to be safe, right? So, and sort of what I've sort of gathered from at least the Hartford scene or the Hartford area is, I think, a little bit of a struggle with equity, right? Where Hartford area schools gave parents a choice, right, between online or in person. And they said, please choose. But what parents were saying is that I looked at the in-person plan and didn't feel safe for that. So that's why I went online. And by going online, what they actually did was they gave parents in person a better opportunity, a safer opportunity, right? Because there's fewer kids in the classroom if I go online, right? So you have Latino and Black parents overwhelmingly went online, then providing a safer in-person environment for white students and other students as well, for parents that might be having full-time work. And parents that are online, they said, my kids struggle, but I don't care, I don't feel safe. And so I think when we think about equity, we gotta think about, if we're gonna give those choices, are we gonna make them rich in a way that is equitable for each group? You know what I mean? So we don't have to give them choices. We could have said, we're gonna do in-person and all classes will have 5 or 10 kids. but Hartford didn't do that. Hartford said, we can't pay for that. We don't have the resources for that. So we're going to put some kids online instead. And that's going to create this kind of safer environment in person, right? So we have to kind of deal with that. Now, thinking about like the online, how do we make it sort of more equitable? You know, I like what Gladys said about, are you connecting instruction to kids' homes, right? You know, what Louis Moll talks about, funds of knowledge, right? So are we having kids connect what they have in their house and think about in their house? You know, are kids counting coins? Are they measuring things? Are they talking to elders in their house about their history, whether it's, you know, history or social studies? Connecting what you're doing in school online and making sure that people are able to, you know, kind of keep up with those sort of things online and connecting them, right? They know there's a lot of stuff that they have in their house that they can kind of connect with and learn from. And then in the in-person, obviously, is it safe? Number one. And then are we connecting kids, right? So one thing that I've kind of, this is kind of, I'll let Alicia talk about this a little bit more maybe later, but there were a number of parents that had they needed special services, right? 504, IEP. Those are some of the parents that did go often back to in-person, right? But do we have the situation where in-person has this clustering of kids that are IEP 504 and need a ton of help or all together by themselves, right? Are they kind of separated? So there's a lot of equity issues. I know I'm just kind of poking at the surface, but I guess my thing is like, you know, if we're going to give parents choices, right, are we following up with the things that support kids in each of those choices? Right. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. And I'm sort of grappling at a little bit, and I'll turn it over to Wanda maybe if she's next. But that's kind of what I'm thinking about right now is like, if you're going to give those choices, are they equitable in sort of supporting the instructional piece in different ways? So that's what I'll say about that.
Sure, perfect. Wanda, I'm gonna shift this in a way that I want you to speak as a grandmother and a mother of a child who has gone through the Bridgeport Public Schools. Some of the things we talked about, school and curriculum connecting to our students, could you give us some insight? Has school done a good job connecting to your daughter in the future? Do you have faith that it will do a good job in connecting to your grandchildren? So really what I'm asking is, have the Bridgeport Public Schools done a good job in valuing and affirming Black and people of color in the community? It's a tough question, Wanda. I gave you the toughest one.
That's a loaded question. And I just have to be me, and I just have to be honest. I would say no. In our district, we have so many issues. You know, we just lost our health director in a pandemic. You know, our district is always underfunded. There's a lack of resources. We have a political climate that is just, you know, not conducive to any of us. And we also, our children deal with trauma. You know, our children are traumatized. We have a high rate of gun violence. You know, our children are losing their fathers, their brothers, their uncles, their cousins. You know, so I can only speak to the Bridgeport district. We have a lot of areas that are not being serviced, you know, when it comes to our children. You know, we need the trauma counselors. And also when it comes to sending our children back to school in person, you know, we have buildings that don't have adequate HVAC systems. You know, we have teachers that are just stressed to the max. You know, so when we have these conversations, you know, are we also bringing in the teacher aspect, you know, because we're saying parents, but teachers are parents also. You know, they have the same issues that we have. You know, some of them may be single parents, you know, their children may be in their district, because a lot of our teachers do not live in the Bridgeport School District. So, you know, they have children in other districts that are, you know, have the option of in-person and remote learning. One of the things that I would really love to see in Bridgeport is that we get qualified people to serve in these areas that are really important. We need resources, number one, and we need people that care. Because I listen to a lot of conversations with teachers, with parents, and all I hear is that they don't care about us. And when you have parents and teachers feel that no one's listening to us, nobody cares, our administration just doesn't care, that's not good. So we need people that care. And maybe they do care, but they're not showing that they care. So it's being interpreted that they don't care. I would love to see our parents have a hotline, where they can call in with these issues. A lot of our parents may not be able to help their student online, but one of the issues down here is safety first, and then in the 21st century, we have such a antiquated school structure. We may have to go totally online. And why should that be a problem? In the 21st century, where we have all of this technology, a lot of our families are not signing on because we have hotspot issues with Wi-Fi. We have the technical divide. So when the Department of Education, and this is just from me observing a lot of the things that I've been listening to and seeing, you're making these lateral policies based on a district that may be much smaller, much resourced than the larger districts. And in my opinion, that's not really fair. I think when we talk about equity, then we have to come down to those harder districts like Hartford and Bridgeport, and we have to find out the solutions, and then we roll it out to the other districts that don't have our issues. So in my opinion, that's just one way that we can, if we really want to tackle equity, then you're gonna have to come to our district. You're gonna have to go in Hartford, and you're really gonna have to meet the needs of the students. And it takes a lot of money. So we always hear, oh, there's no money, there's no money. Okay, well, if there's no money and we have all of these issues, and you're talking about equity, then we've always had to take our little and make it much. And when you talk about giving the families options, then there's an overload on the teachers. So we have to take a step back, and we have to bring everyone to the table, the students, the teachers, the community, the faith-based, and everyone's voice has to be important. And right now, we don't feel like our voices are being heard and that they're important. There's decisions that are just being made based on economics and, versus humanity. And that's not good. So I would love to see that change. Let's take a humanistic approach to equity in the solutions that we come up with, because we have to put people first, safety first, especially in this pandemic.
Agree. It seems to me that we're talking about culturally relevant curriculums. We're talking about connecting. We're talking about a massive need for resources, a vast network to improve communication. And definitely we also want people to feel that at their in-person school or online are safe places to go. One of the things, as we're going to start wrapping up, I'm going to ask everyone for like one idea, one suggestion that could help. But I want to remind us something about curriculum. Dr. Rusim Bishop is Professor Emeritus from Ohio State University, whose research has particularly looked at curriculum, and particularly the literacy curriculums, the things that students read. And she has, back in the 90s, she wrote about that the things that we read and we write about in school, they should have opportunities to be mirrors, to see ourselves, to be windows, to look into others, and to have these sliding doors, she called them, where we could step into the shoes of another. And Rudine Sims Bishop talks about transformational curriculum is not curriculum that's only like mirrors. She says the transformation comes when we can experience the lives of others through the things we read. So relevant curriculum is definitely a piece over there. So if I started with Gwen, if you thought there was like something we can do to help with that call, a simple suggestion, we're here, we're ready, and we want to help.
Thank you. One thing I heard that kind of stood with me, impressed me was, and I believe it was Dr. Stewart who said it's very important to connect with your student and to make them feel safe. And I can remember one instance with myself as a young learner. I didn't always like to ask questions, but I had lots of questions. And it wasn't until a teacher made me feel that there are no dumb questions that I felt confident enough in the learning environment to start asking questions, and hence my line of work. So I thought that was very good, that we should, as community leaders, teachers, mentors, think of ways to give them the feeling of safety in the learning environment. And perhaps then that would be the hook to get them to attend the classes, to do the homework, and so on and so forth.
Definitely, definitely. And Dr. Labas, if you can give us one idea, maybe we can get on board with and help.
I would say, again, as I stated, the personalization, always engaging parents. As you know, in Connecticut, we have 6 different languages that we speak. And of course, Spanish is the largest. And third is Arabic. We have a very growing Arabic community. And we need to make sure that our districts are making everyone feel welcome. And that is through making sure you provide documentations in their native language, have translators, be able to make the environment for them safe for them to come in and be able to participate. So if I have to leave that is to me, again, that personalization and that engagement that we need to have.
Love it, love it. Dr. Jones, if you can give us a brief insight there.
Sure. I talked a lot about culturally relevant pedagogy, and that's more on the teacher side. So I want to give parents a couple of tips and also students to motivate them. So one is, I agree, I think it was Dr. Labaz that said that the parents need to know that they need to support their children. They're not there to be the math teacher. In fact, parents know so much about math, and I always help my mom to see all the math she does in her crocheting, so that if we position students as smart, and their parents as smart, then they start to think differently. Because all students, they don't think their parents are smart. Their parents are very smart. But let me give you a couple of websites. One is called Mathematically Gifted in Black, and that's the actual website.com. And that's about Black mathematicians, because students need that mirror. They need to see themselves. They need to see that they can do it. And what I love about this website is they have a lot of young Black mathematicians that look like their uncle or their brother. And then and there are many websites. I'm just giving 2 today. And the other one is Lathisms, LATHISMS.org. And that is Latinx mathematicians as well. So those are just 2, there are many more. And they have Native Americans in the Mathematical Sciences website. I don't remember the actual URL, so I just gave you 2. But there is the sliding door that you talked about. Yep, there you go. Mathematically Gifted in Black. And so, and then I have a Facebook page called Learning Math with Dr. Jones. And what parents like about it is they say, oh, that's why you do that. So I try to explain the why, and that's it. And hopefully that motivates students as well to see people that look like them.
And thank you, Harry. All right, he's right on target. Okay, Dr. Stewart, could you give us something? You know, we have many kids who have IEPs in our schools. And could you give us just something? We've heard things people said, make personal connections, make curriculum relevant, and involve parents. We've done that. Any other things that we could do, especially in relationship to our special education students?
Yeah, I think that sometimes virtually it can be more difficult to provide grades to students, for example. And something to think about is how important our formative assessments are as teachers, so that we can see what our students are understanding and what they're not. That way we know what to teach and how to adapt our instruction. But to me, formative assessment is really for that. It's to inform me as the teacher to be able to respond to my students. But one way in which we can focus on grading right now is to really highlight effort and highlight engagement and highlight participation. And so, and it's not to say that, you know, we shouldn't also look at, you know, quizzes and things like that. I know sometimes we have to, and I understand that, but I think to really build students' confidence and really help them feel successful, we have to give them evidence of their success. And sometimes a big success is for them to engage in any way, shape, or form. So if we can just sort of build on that and really acknowledge that and give points for participation and sort of be willing to think outside of the box in terms of how we want to reinforce and really encourage our students so that they feel safe and they keep coming back because they know that that effort is really what you want to see as the teacher.
Perfect. And I'm just looking at stuff. Make education personal, connect to learners and parents, make it relevant, give people breaks, and safety, and obviously resources. So Robert, a suggestion there?
Yeah, so just really quickly, because these ladies are fantastic and they're wiser, much wiser than I am. But I would just say, I just say one thing that I'm looking towards is the future, right? Like, okay, we got to start thinking about now what fall is gonna. I know it's like way forward, but how are we gonna stay connected now so that what does fall look like? What does the summer look like, right? And are we calling parents? Are we staying connected to students? For the students that aren't, you know, logging on and whatnot, how are we staying connected, right? Because we're gonna, like, things are moving fast, and I'm worried that in the fall we're gonna get to a point where people, you know, I don't even know what the fall is gonna look like, frankly, but what's that gonna look like? Because in my survey, what I found, there were a couple things that like are future things to think about, and I'll stop there. A couple of white parents, I don't know what their kind of financial status was, but they said, I'm pulling my kid out of public school entirely. Okay, so they just said, I'm out. Okay, small number, you know, maybe 3 to 5 parents. And then there were a number of Black parents that said, this stands out in the survey, right? A number of Black parents or parents that identified as Black, they said, my kid's doing great. They're doing better online than they were in school because it's not a stressful situation. It's not, the kids aren't being punished or pushed. And so we need to think about how we're going to go to the next step of re-inviting people, not just the COVID vaccine stuff, right? Because that's not necessarily in our hands, but what happens next, right? How do we re-invite? How do we stay connected? That's something that we got to think about.
Perfect. And Wanda, can you give us a minute, like what we can do or how we can help?
Yes. Let's validate our children every single day. Tell them that they're scholars. Let's reward them for being resilient in a pandemic. All the small things that they do, let's say thank you. You know, let's just make them feel appreciated, you know, and allow them to show them that we understand this. Yes, this is a hard time. You're in school, you have to do all of these things, but I value you. You are important. You are resilient. You're gonna get through this. I think we have to stop using all these languages. They're behind. They're low income. They're this. They're that. No, we have to start reinforcing who our children are. They are scholars. They are destined for greatness, and this is a message that they need to hear every single day that they wake up. You are valued. You are important. You are a scholar, and you are destined for greatness, regardless of where you live and what your income status is.
Thank you, everyone, for a wonderful discussion. And we certainly need to come back to have a discussion with the elephant in the room. We haven't discussed how we increase diverse teachers in Connecticut, which would be dramatically help us if our students not only could see themselves in the book, but can see themselves in front of the classroom. We can certainly do better. Thank you. God bless. And you guests were wonderful. I'm putting you down in my little email book. You are just fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Tom Ficklin and 103.5 New Haven. And Harry, great engineer.
103.5 FM New Haven.
To finish being a quitter, but little by little they joking, telling some riddles. Now I'm in my section.